The reason why we're doing this is because we got a lot of back and forth conversation with so-called people that claim to be Hebrew Israelites, and we figure that we might as well get a Moor that's a Hebrew Israelite to address certain things, hopefully, with Allah's will, with Yahweh's will. It will inspire other Hebrew Israelites to consider what Moorish nationality means to the Hebrew Israelites. So the first thing we'll do is you can introduce yourself and just let us know how you got introduced or how you made the transition. What went off in your head to make you make the transition from saying you're just Hebrew Israelite, nothing else, to now where you're at right now?
All right. Well, anyway, I want to first give supreme honor to our prophet, Noble Drew Ali, because without him bringing us this information of who we are, bringing back into the consciousness of who we are, none of us wouldn't be here right now talking about these issues and actually being a Moor and claiming our nationality and birthright. So supreme honors and, tip my locks up to the prophet, because he is definitely the man of the century, I would say, in our modern times. Also want to give a shout out to Sister Roz Mariah Bay, RV Bay Publication, because that site has tremendously helped me as a Moor. I've only been walking in this for about 3 years, since 2013, and just the wealth of information that has sprang forth from that site itself is just, it's invaluable. It's an online university, and if I had anything to say to any new Moors, get on RV Bay Publication and don't get off of there, because if you stay on there and study, as the prophet said, you can become very astute in history and in law. Also want to give a shout out to Taj Tariq Bey, because 4 years ago, I actually was introduced to the Moorish paradigm, if you will, and do a series of videos that kind of got my attention, even though I didn't do anything at that time, but the seed was planted in my spirit. And so I want to give a supreme shout out to Taj Tariq Bey as well. And also Obashanga El, his website, obashangael.com, wealth of information on that site as well. The brother is just bringing it forth far as the knowledge is concerned. And last but not least, Brother Cujo, because I watched his video and he helped me make a transition from, and I'm not going to call the name right now, but from one temple to where I'm at today, and orchestrating a study group here online, actually. So big ups to you as well, Cujo, and the work that you're doing to uplift fallen humanity. So
one more thing quickly as well. Whereabouts are you in Northwest Amexem, and are people able to reach out to you out there if they need? There might be Moors where you're at that don't know that there's study groups and stuff going on.
Right. I'm in Northwest Amexem, near the corporate city of Chattanooga, the purview of Tennessee. And I've been here for about 1.5 years now. I kind of go back and forth to Michigan. Actually, Michigan is our home base. And so I'm right here in the Chattanooga area. So if anybody, Moors out there in the Chattanooga area, please contact me. I'll give my information towards the end where you can email me. So if you're out there, please give me a call. Anyway, let me go in a little bit of my background and kind of share with the listeners where I came from and how I progressed up the ladder of knowledge. And like many of you, I grew up as a Christian, came out of the womb as a Christian. And my parents, especially my mother, was very strong in her Christian beliefs. And her parents were, my grandfather, who was my mentor, peace be upon him. Right now, he's made his transition in 2009. But he was definitely a big influence in my life. He was a man's man, even though he was a strong Christian and had the Christian belief. Still yet, the principles and the morals and the standards that he displayed in my life was just, beyond, the scope of what the average father is doing to their children today. So that started my journey. And when I was in college, I actually really honed into my Christian beliefs at the time. I became an ordained minister. I became a street preacher. And lo and behold, I saw myself out there, on the street corners and mainly within our neighborhoods, amongst the prostitutes, amongst the drug addicts, amongst the gangbangers, you name it. I was right there. And yelling out, Jesus loves you, and all of this other stuff that goes along with Christianity. But there was something that was in my heart that was crying out for more. And I didn't know what it was at the time. And I began to cry out to, at that time, I called God. And for him to help me to receive more truth, because what I started seeing in Christianity and especially being amongst the leadership, there was a lot of wickedness going on. And me being serious about my faith, being serious about my beliefs, I was questioning a lot of things. And I saw these things happening, the money laundering, the women, the pastors sleeping around, all these different things I saw, and it disturbed me. And so I began to cry out. And so one thing led to the next. I ended up moving from one particular city to another city. And lo and behold, I came in contact with a ministry that dealt with more Messianic Jewish or Hebrew persuasion. And at the time I was really seeking, and when I heard the message come forth, something began to resonate within me. And I started looking at the whole Christian scope in a totally different fashion, meaning that I recognized Yeshua instead of his name being Jesus. I started calling him Yeshua ben Yosef. And so we looked at that as the proper name for the quote-unquote Savior. And I started keeping what they call the Shabbat, or the Saturday worship. So within that Shabbat, we would have service. We would read our Bibles. We would, do all types of prayers and whatever. Matter of fact, just to show you all that my Hebrewism, I still carry this, still read it at time because it's our book. This right here. Many of you Hebrews know this right here. It's the Tanakh. The Tanakh. Okay? And when I open it up here, just to let you know how serious I was, but I wasn't playing games with this. Here's the first chapter of Bereshit, or in English, Genesis. And you see all my markings on there. You see the Hebrew on your right and the English translation. And so I began to study the Hebrew language, and I began to read the Hebrew language. I can read the Hebrew language. Also the German language, because I lived in Germany in German-speaking country for a number of years. And I'll come back to that point in a little bit. But as I began to study on the Hebrew side, I just want to let everybody know that there are many factions of Hebrew beliefs. There are what we call the Messianic Hebrews, which they believe in Yeshua. Some of them say Yahweh Shai, or what have you. They got various names for Yeshua. But those are the ones that believe that Yeshua is coming back to establish his earthly kingdom here on this earth. And that the land of Israel that we know of today in Jerusalem, that's where his ruling throne will be ushered from. And so I was in that for a couple of years, and then I began to seek more and more, and kind of dropped that persuasion because I saw some things that was not lining up with the New Testament and the Old Testament. The dichotomy there was totally, off whack. And so I began to look at the words of Yeshua, and I began to look at the words of Yod He Wah He, and even in that tetragrammaton or tetragrammaton, there are different pronunciations within the body of the Hebrew Israelites. Some say Yahuwah, some say Yahweh, some say Yahweh, some say Yehovah. So even in that, we debated and could not get the name right. But everybody thought they had the edge on the Creator based on their own teachings and their own persuasions. So I ended up dropping the New Testament theory that no man can die for my sins, according to Deuteronomy, Debunking, chapter 24, verse number 16. It says that a father cannot die for the sins of his children, nor can the children die for the sins of the father. Every man must die for their own sins. And that got my attention. And I realized, I said, well, if this is saying that, and then the New Testament is saying that I need someone to die for my sins, then somebody's lying. And if I need somebody to die for my sins, then I can just continue to act a fool and do what I want to do and just, hey, I accept Jesus, I accept his love, I accept everything. And since he died for my sin, past, present, and future, that's what we were taught, then I'm free. I'm good to go. Not that everybody thought like that, but I'm just saying that it's just like a free get out of jail card, if you will. But I dropped the whole notion of New Testament, someone dying for my sins, and I began to focus strictly on the Tanakh, or the Old Testament, so-called. And as I began to venture off in the Old Testament, I started getting a good grip on the Hebrew language, started studying the Hebrew language, started looking up different understandings and meanings of certain words, not knowing that I did not have a thorough foundation in really understanding the Hebrew scriptures, because number one, there's no original version. Nobody can show me an original manuscript. There isn't any. And if there is any, no one has come forth to display that. So we're battling over doctrinal differences when we really don't have original documents to really prove what we say we believe. And so through the course of time, as I began to develop my understanding, I became pretty affluent within the Hebrew Israelite community that I was attached to, and became a quote-unquote teacher, or as they call it in Hebrew, Mooreh. And just listen to that word itself, Mooreh, lets you know that there's something Moorish about it. So, didn't know that at the time until later on. So to fast forward, I stayed in that for a few years, and all of a sudden that same feeling that I had when I was in Christianity started bubbling up within my spirit again. And I was like, well, what's going on now? It's always something, always something going on. Either I got the truth, which I thought I did have the total package, that there's nothing else. I have arrived. There's nothing else that I need to know. I just need to grow in this right here, because I know that the kingdom of Yah is going to come back once again and restore his people, the lost tribes of Israel. That was my thinking. And I was good with that. I was fine with it. And oh, by the way, before I go on, just for the record, I just want to present to the people my nationality card. If I bring it close here, I do have a nationality. I do have paperwork that supports this. Also, for you Hebrews that know Hebrew, this is my Isha. This is my wife, her nationality card. Okay? We filed our paperwork, and it's on the record. So I just want to qualify that before I go on, just to let everyone know that we do have a nationality, and we have proclaimed that nationality, and we walk actively within that. But anyway, going forward, as I got this feeling of something is not right, I started seeing contradictions within the scriptures, and I started seeing that, this so-called loving God that we serve was pretty angry, and really, taking folk out, taking babies out, taking, women, allowing certain things to happen, and it seemed like there's no judgment being brought forth to the ones that are actually perpetrating the, all of the atrocities. And so, as I began to look at these things, I was like, well, that they're, I was making justifications for all of these atrocities that were happening to people in other nations and what have you, just to fit my own paradigm as a Hebrew. Well, God hates sin. Yahweh hates sin. And if there's sin in the camp, he's going to take you out. All these different rationales went in my mind. But as I began to seek more and more, like I mentioned earlier, Taj Tariq Bey's videos started coming back to me. And so I went on YouTube and I began to type in some things there, and I got some of Taj's videos and I began to study them. And at first I was like, this is kind of off of my beaten path because of my persuasion and my beliefs. Here I am calling on Yod-Heh Wah-Heh, and now they're saying Allah. Now to me that's blasphemy at the time. So I can't call on another deity, because Yah says that he is Yah and he changes not, and that you to serve him and him alone, and any other deity, don't even let the names of those deities come out of your mouth. That was my teaching. And so as I began to examine more and more, I realized that I don't understand what I think I understand. And here's another book that I knew about, but I never did read. Didn't know much about it. The Septuagint, or the Septuaginta, which is the first Bibles. So all these things started coming to me, and I'm looking at this. I said, well, if this is the first Bible, where did this come from? And as I began to search more and more, realized that it came from the Book of the Dead. And that really sent me off the deep end, because I said Book of the Dead, because we were coming against the Kemetan brothers, You were saying to the Committing brothers, nah, you guys are far out there. You guys don't understand that we are the true Israelites, and you guys, we took you guys out. We destroyed Egypt. I was saying all these different things and realized that 85 to 90% of the book of Psalms and Proverbs came from the book of the dead, came from the writings from Kemet. And I was like, oh my goodness, what have I fallen into now? And so, as I began to study more, the fear of stepping out there and looking into these things began to dissipate. And I knew I was going to get some backlash from my Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. But at that point in time, I didn't care. I just wanted the truth of who and what I really am. And I began to listen to Brother Taj, and as he talked about the principles of civilization. And when you begin to understand the principles of civilization, then you'll understand that all of these arguments that men make through beliefism has nothing to do with true religion. Because true religion actually binds you back to the cosmos, to the metaneters, or to nature, and makes you one with the Creator, whomever you may call him, Allah, Yahweh, Shiva, whomever. And once you begin to understand that it's all about bloodline, and that we are all the same people, then the argument is settled. Because what I'm going to show tonight, some of the documents that I do have, I'm going to read to you. And I want you Hebrew Israelites to really hear and understand that you don't have to be afraid to step out and learn of your nationality. You have a birthright. You were born out of a womb. You were not born a Hebrew Israelite. I say that again. You were not born a Hebrew Israelite. You were born a Moor. And I know many of you out there listening, you was like, well, Moor, what does Moor mean? Well, Moor just simply means any dark-skinned individual, especially that of African descent or the Negro. You are classified right now as Negro. You are classified as black. You are classified as African American. So if you're classified as that, then that puts you, or that qualifies you to be a Moor, based on definition. We are the same people, make no mistake about it. And when you understand that we are the same people, then the arguments and the silly, going back and forth debating about issues that we shouldn't really be debating about, it's already settled. And I'm going to deal real quick with some blood issues, some DNA, because DNA pretty much trumps everything. I want to share a little bit about the E1B1 markers. The E1B1 markers. Now, you guys can look that up on the internet. I have information I can send out to you. But the E1B1 markers derive from the East. Most of us have these markers. And we come into many names. We come from many names, such as Somalia, Sudan, Ethiopia or Kush, Nahessians, Libyans, Numidians, Egyptians, Moroccans, Tunisians, Algiers, Canaanites, Hittites, Al-Moroccans, All of these are synonymous to Moors. Now, I had the opportunity and the pleasure to live in 4 different countries in my extended travels throughout my years. And one of the countries I lived at was Germany. And within Germany, in their Bible, you can actually see, and if you go back to the 1500s or the 15th century, 14th century, when they first had their Bibles in German, the German language, you will see the word Moor and African used synonymously. Moor and African used synonymously all throughout their Bible. And matter of fact, when I was over there, as I visited all of these places, these cathedrals that were just absolutely gorgeous that we built as Moors, I began to see all the Moorish artifacts. At the time, I was unconscious. I didn't know. But I saw that over there with my own eyes. And now, having awakened to who I am and to my nationality, I realized that I was in the land of the Moors as well, because we ruled in Europe as well. So, all of these markers and these different names that we came under, we are the same people, the same bloodline, no difference. So why am I arguing with my brother and my sister about beliefs? Beliefs of children. We soon have to grow up out of the whole belief paradigm and get off into fruition and begin to manifest those things that we already know that we have within us, the power that we have within us as Moors, to bring forth any manifestation on this earth plane that we desire. But why aren't we doing it? As I have traveled around the world, as I mentioned, everyone that I've come in contact has a nationality. Not one individual that I met didn't have a nationality. And when I talk to my Hebrew Israelite brothers, the first thing they tell me, well, Yah has my nationality. He owns my nationality. I don't need to worry about what man's nationality is. He has my nationality. And as I begin to listen to that statement coming out of our brothers and sisters' mouths, I hate to use the word ignorant, but I'm going to use the word ignorant for the fact of not knowing that that doesn't even add up. When you look at it from the standpoint of, if you understand Hermetic principles, the 7 Hermetic principles, so above, so below. So if you have a nationality down here, there's a nationality up there. If there's a nationality up there, you got a nationality down here. Now I know that that might be a little far-fetched for some of us because we've been so branded through the Eurocentric understanding of the cosmos, because believe me, they know and understand our science, and they've been using it against us ever since we've fallen asleep. And those same sciences that they use are for us. And so the galactic forces that are in the cosmos today, that are out there, they all have nationalities. They all are part of whatever, star, planet, whatever solar system, star system that they are associated with. That's part of their nationality. So if you coming down here in the womb of a woman, you must have a nationality. How do I know that? Well, let's look at, etymology, or the etymon. Many of you who study languages and linguistics, you will understand that you have to, when you look up the meaning of a word, you have to go back to its matrix. The matrix is the mother, not the father, but the mother. That's why we have these little terms such as, or little cliches such as the mother tongue. Why is it never the father's tongue? Or the motherland. Why is it not the father's land? It always goes back to the mother. And so if you came out of your mother, then your mother is tied to a nationality or a nation. What is that nation? You say Hebrew Israelite, but there's no nation on the planet at this time called Hebrew Israelite. You just can't make up a nation and call it something. You have to be attached to something. So my challenge to you all, what are you attached to? I don't want to hear about you attached to Yahweh, because Yahweh is not, in essence, physically here, because you say he's up there. So if he's up there, what's down here? Who are you attached to down here as a nation? So these are some of the things that I began to just question. And as I questioned them, I end up really, moving away from a lot of the dogmatism that came with the whole Hebrew Israelite movement. And just like Christianity, most of it is dogma. The masses do not get true religion. The pastors, the popes, the priests, the imams, all of those individuals, the masons, the top ones, those who are in authority, those who are in great leadership, they know these things. They know the science behind all of these ancient writings that our forefathers and mothers created.
One quick question. Canaanites and Israelites.
Yes.
What is the connection between those two cultures / nations? What's the connection from your perspective, being Hebrew Israelite? Because Hebrews always say, "Oh, we're not Canaanites. Canaanites are, cursed or whatever like that. We're Israelites." How is that relative to clearing up the confusion for them, so that they can gravitate to this side, and the truth about the history about themselves?
Exactly. Well, the Canaanites, the Phoenicians, all those individuals were the same people. When the Israelites came into the land of Canaan, as it say in the Hebrew, they became just like the Canaanites. Matter of fact, how we know that is even through the scriptures. The word Bet-El or Beth-El, which is in Hebrew Beit-El. Beit is house, and El is, of course, power. Some people translate it as God. Okay? El, we know, is the Canaanite God, if you will. So, in order for you to say you have a different religion or a different beliefism, but you're still using the same names as the Canaanite gods use, or the Canaanites use for their God, how can you be different? You are the same people. The Israelites merged with the Canaanites, which they are brothers. We all brothers and sisters and cousins. There's no difference between us. So, as we entered into the land of Canaan, which is, go back to Abraham again, or Abraham lived amongst the Canaanites, and thus was considered one of the Canaanites. There's no difference between the two people, the two groups. We use the word Elohim, which is Proto-Canaanite. We use the word Israel, which is Canaanite. All the L's in there is Canaanite. Baal, we use the word Al as well. It's all Canaanite. So this whole notion that we are different, we're not the same people, goes back again, the silly argument that my belief is better than yours. My God is more stronger, or my God wears better Nikes than your God, so that means that, you know, I'm better. I can leap higher. I can do better things. And this so-called power that we possess as Hebrew Israelites, as we think we haven't really displayed anything to show forth the changing of our neighborhoods. Our neighborhoods are still the same. So if we got all this power and we say we separate from the so-called Canaanites, that they were cursed and we're blessed, but then why in the world did Israel get kicked out of the land? That's a question I have. Why in the world did the Israelites get kicked out of the land? And why in the world they could not get it right? You mean to tell me out of the whole Hebrew Israelite nation, you only ruled for 70 years? 70 years. As Moors, we ruled for almost 1,000. Almost 1,000. So now if I have to look at that and weigh it on the scale as, okay, if we play this beliefism thing, well, let me see here. Okay, Yahweh only allowed me to rule for 70 years, but Allah allowed me to rule for almost 1,000 years. Now, which one would I gravitate to? I mean, just using common sense. Which one would I gravitate to if I had to pick and choose which is the more powerful God? I'm going to go with the one who allowed his people to rule the longest. So to answer the question, there's no difference, my brother. There's no difference between the Canaanites and the Israelites. The connection came through Joshua coming into the land, as the Circle 7 actually points out as well. And we all grew and intermingled together.
You said that you had some things to show. What type of things did you find out in your coming back home to Moorish nationality and birthrights that confirmed to you that one, it's important to have a nationality, and two, that you don't have to abandon your Hebrew culture in order to say that you're a Moor?
Right. Well, one thing I want to say as well, just to let everyone know, our Hebrew Israelites, that many of them think that we as Moors trying to get people to convert over into another beliefism or whatever, and that's the furthest thing from the truth. Matter of fact, in the Circle 7 Holy Quran and the Moorish Science Temple states that, you know, you worship under your own fig and vine tree, your vine and fig tree. So you continue being a Hebrew Israelite. Nobody is questioning how you worship. If you want to continue to do the Shabbat, do the Shabbat. If you want to continue to serve Jesus, then you continue to serve Jesus. That has nothing to do with claiming your nationality. Let me preface this as well. As I travel throughout, you know, various places, one thing I realized that the Chinaman is all over the place. Every place I go, I've seen the Chinaman. And there's a place when I was living in Belgrade, Serbia, out of all the places, I was in Belgrade, Serbia, the old former Yugoslavia. And there was a place, and you can even look this up, called Block 70. Block 70. And this whole block was dedicated to, this particular block of building was dedicated to the Chinese, the Asian. And we used to go there and shop. They had like 3 stories, and they had clothes. They sold somewhere everything. And I would have conversation with these various, Chinamen. They were very lively, very friendly people. But they understood economics. They understood coming together. And I met some of them who were Buddhists. I met some of them who were Christians. I met some of them who were Muslims. I mean, all across the board. But yet, they were working together, and no one was bickering over, well, my belief is this, or I'm not going to work with you because, I'm a Buddhist and you are a Christian, or what have you. They all work together. And if you ask them their nationality, all of them said, I'm Chinese or Manchurian. So why is it that we feel that we have to separate ourselves because of a belief? And so when I started looking at some of these documents, one of the documents here, I'm going to see if I can bring it up here. It is The Origins and Empire of Ancient Israel by Stephen M. Collins, pages 206 to 232. Now I'm going to read a couple paragraphs here. I want you guys to listen to what he's saying. This particular subtitle is Israelite Colonies in the New World. Israelite colonies in the New World. So far, we have only scratched the surface of the subject of ancient civilizations being present in North America. Let us examine additional evidence of their presence in the ancient New World. Consider the languages of the Triple Alliance of Israel, Egypt, and Phoenicia in the time of King Solomon. Their languages included the Semitic language shared by the Israelites and the Phoenicians, with mere dialectical differences. Egyptian and the language of North African Libyan sailors of the Egyptian Navy. Remember, I mentioned on the E1, B1 markers that Libya is another name that we fell under as Moors as well. And it's mentioned in here as well. He goes on to say, Dr. Barry Fell's book, America BC, includes much evidence of the exploration of American soil by ancient people with the above language groups. We have already examined evidence from his book that the Phoenicians had a significant presence in North America, and that the Phoenician god Baal was worshipped at an ancient temple site in New Hampshire. Rawlinson cited the habit of the Phoenicians in bringing their religion wherever they went and building temples in their colonies to honor their deities. So the existence of a temple dedicated to Baal at the ancient New England temple site is consistent with their habits. Now he goes on to say that this ancient stela, show a picture of it right here. This is an ancient stela found right here in the good old Amexem, the Almoroccan Empire. It says, the ancient stela contains joint inscriptions in 3 ancient languages: Iberian Punic, a language related to and descended from the Phoenician Hebrew, Egyptian, and ancient Libyan. These are the language groups of the triple lines that the Bible reveals began in the reign of Solomon. Since this ancient stela confirms these groups were traveling and working together in the interior of North America, it indicates that this alliance not only existed, but also had a global reach. It says, indeed, Dr. Farrell describes this stela shown above as one of the most important stelas ever discovered. Why then is this priceless evidence of ancient exploration in North America not featured in history textbooks? Again, we are confronted by the refusal of modern academia to accept the obvious because their devotion to the false dogma that nobody could have discovered America before Columbus. He goes on to say here that Dr. Farrell also wrote that this ancient inscription found in Iowa could date to around 700 BC. 700 BC. A dating of 800 to 700 BC is very consistent with the biblical accounts of that period, that these language groups were still acting in such close concert with each other that they left a trilingual inscription at that time indicates that they were still cooperating very closely in transoceanic voyages. The Bible reveals an alliance of these linguistic groups was established under King Solomon during the 10th century BC. The terms Iberian and Punic indicate languages that are closely related to the descended from the Phoenician Hebrew language. Indeed, the term Iberian comes from the name Eber, the father of the Hebrews. The term Iberian proclaims Hebrew roots. And as I began to research these things, I started seeing that we were already here in the Americas way before some so-called slave ship that we still can't find came over here. Now, the argument that most Hebrew Israelites make, Brother Cujo, is that Deuteronomy 28:68, the whole, or 28:15 through 68, and they talk about the curses that have come upon the children of Israel for turning their backs on Yahweh or Jehovah or Yahuwah or Yahweh, and that they will be placed in chains and shipped to some place. And so they associate that with the transatlantic slave trade, which they say happened in 1611, that the majority of the Hebrews came over here in 1611. I just read that they were already over here 700 BC. So how is it that they were already here and left inscriptions here? And also you can go to the New Mexico site and pull up the inscriptions of Hebrews there, the stela that's there in the stones. Stones don't lie. And you can see the inscription of Hebrew already here. All the connections are right here. The majority of Hebrew inscriptions are right here in America and not over there in the so-called land of Israel. 90%. And it's been documented. So why are we sitting here talking about going back over there to, Israel, making aliyah, when the majority of the finds and the evidence is here in good old Mexico? So these are the things that I began to look at and start seeing, and it started formulating in my mind that something that they are not telling us began to make sense to me.
Okay, another question. You just mentioned Israel. Is that the same Israel that the Jews with Palestine and all that? When they when the Hebrews say Israel, are they talking about the same Israel that the Jews renamed Palestine after?
Yes, yes, that's the same land that they're talking about. That's their land. That's why, if you remember the group, the Kingdom of Yah, which was orchestrated by Ben-Ami, and they came from Chicago back in 1967, and they made trips all the way over there, 3,000 of them, and they finally made it to the so-called land of Israel, where they have been there ever since. And of course, Ben-Ami made his transition last year, peace be upon him. But yes, that's the same land that they claim that belongs to them. So if that's the case, then why aren't they making moves to go over there? Why, if everybody's complaining that this is not our land, then why not move over into your land? But I would say this right here. If you move there, what would be your nationality? Because they're not going to recognize Negroes, blacks, and colors, because that's not a part of the human family. So if you go there, or you're going as a Hebrew Israelite, then where's your Hebrew Israelite nationality card and paperwork to show forth your claim, if you do have a legitimate claim? Because I know over there, I've been over there, and I've been to the old city, and they have what they call the gate called Moors, or the Moors Gate. I don't see no Hebrew Israelite gate, but I see the Moors Gate. So why is that? Obviously, somebody's not telling us something. They're hiding it from us. So if it's the Moors Gate, then why aren't we claiming our gate back as Moors? But we're not. So also, I want to read here. The real Indian is the Negro, aka the Blackamoor. Now, most of us who were born over here, in our families, talking to grandmother, great-grandmother, grandfather, great-grandfather, everybody says the same thing. Oh, you know, we were Indians, you know, so-called Indians, which, you know, misnomered as Indian, but it should be Moors. My grandmother was Cherokee from the Ani-Uwea tribe, okay? My other grandmother, my great-grandmother, was Cherokee. So everybody that I've talked to that looked like you and I, Cujo, have the same story. I never heard anybody yet say, well, you know, we came over here in some slave ships, and your dad came over, your great-great-grandfather came over here in slave ships or whatever. Nobody never said that. Everybody said that they were from this particular Indian tribe. And I'm pretty sure that most of the Hebrew Israelites, if they're honest, will say amen to that, or at least Amen Ra, right? Let me read something else. Noble Drew Ali. Put that out here for the record. It says, this man plays a very important role in history. He is the first teacher of the original faith, God's faith or religion, that the old-time religion, submission to the will of Allah, which is called by many names. However, in Arabic, we say Islam. He brought this truth back to the true house of Israel, the descendants of the family of Abraham or Abraham. This is who we, so-called black people in America, are referred referred to as in the third surah of the Quran. It is my contention that Noble Drew Ali and his family, along with the mass amounts of people, are key links to the study in regards to our divine lineage from the 18th dynasty of Egypt, or Moorish Israel. He was a descendant of a man named Yosef bin Ali, a black man from Morocco who was a Moorish Muslim national who lived in America. Yusuf bin Ali and his son York were instrumental in activity with Lewis and Clark and the expansion of white people's knowledge of the western frontier in America during the 1800s. Noble Drew Ali's father and mother also play a very important role in respect to this subject of American jurisprudence, land, and our ancient indigenous history. This is covered in the next chapter. It says right here, the members of the 18th dynasty are hidden under the so-called major prophets of the Bible and Quran, and this lineage is the nation descended from Abraham, or from this time period called the New Kingdom in Egypt, that gives rise to the Olmecs, Olmexum civilization in America. The Olmec, Mayan, Aztec civilization are given credit for all of the scientific, astrological, agricultural, architectural, engineering, pyramids, and mound building advancement that took place in ancient America. The natives of the land of Mexico, Central America, and the Yucatan, specifically the Quiche or the Kush or the Kish people of Maya land, say that their ancestors were Israelites. In history, there were the 18th dynasty Amarna nation, or Amarna nation, that left Tamore, or Egypt, and fled to the Middle East and America. The Quiche, who are a native tribe in Mexico, report this origin to priests in The Mysteries of the Mexican Pyramids by Peter Thompson. Now, it says here that these then were the three nations of Quiches, and they came from where the sun rises, descendants of Israel, of the same language and of the same customs. All of them Moors. Last bit of information on this one right here I want to share is that the other standard version from the Hebrew Masoretic text from the 9th century AD that writes 900 AD, the importance of the Septuagint Bible that I showed you earlier, is that the council who recorded the history of Israel were recording the oral traditions they had learned from the true black Moorish Israelites in Babylon. Afterwards, the white, so-called white Jews, under the direction of Ptolemy and other Roman rulers who came later, studied the lost history of the 18th dynasty that had been nearly washed away by the biblical and Quranic Pharaoh Ramesses and his son Seti I during the 19th dynasty of Egypt. This lost history of the 18th dynasty, Moorish Israel, was used by these white people, or so-called Jews, to graft themselves in as the Israel and major prophets of the Bible. These prophets were really major figures of the 18th dynasty of Egypt, like Akhenaten, which is Moses or Solomon, and Uya, Tutmos III, David, Abraham. All Moorish Israel. No different. Same people, same bloodline. But we don't want to claim our nationality as Moors because our belief system is keeping us separated from one another, which goes back to the Eurocentric mindset and training that we all have ascertained in our life, and that's keeping us divided right now as a people. And that was a plan, and that plan worked strategically for them. That is why we're still in the mess that we're in today, because we can't seem to understand simple, fundamental principles of civilization, which goes back to bloodline. We rather believe in something that is false than believe in the very evidence that's apparent to us, which is our bloodline, our lineage. Why is that? It's because that's a training that happened in our midst, because the Europeans have come in and have infiltrated our scriptures. They have changed and deleted certain things and to make us go against one another so that they can continue to rule and reign as they are today, and making trillions of dollars daily, trillions of fiat, that is, daily, off our ignorance. When are we going to stop it? When are we going to come together and realize that we are a powerful nation? And when we put our differences aside and stick with the core essence of nationality and birthright, then we can regain what we lost. But until then, the saga continues. You had a question, my brother?
Yeah, just relative to the Allah and Yahweh, that transition, because you were speaking earlier also about the fear that takes over our people when it's time to take it to that next level, when you reach that Hippocratic line that you have to cross, or you remain in hypocrisy. Could you speak on getting over that hump? Like, what was it? Just the information, trusting in the information? Was it the spirits guiding you to say, you know what, forget it, let me just go ahead first? Like, how was that transition?
Well, it was a bit of both. It was a bit of both. It was the spirit prompting me to move out of my comfort zone and out of the dogma. And with that, I began to look at the science behind the whole understanding of Yod Hey Wah Hey, because we Hebrews, we are stuck in a certain mindset. We only see things from the scriptures because we've been taught and trained to see it a certain way. And as I began to move out of that paradigm and start understanding that Moorish science is about knowing the facts, and it's not about some dogma that someone has given me for me to recite and to repeat after me, blah blah blah, and it just become a dog and pony show. It to me, it was more of the science aspect. Look at Allah: arm, leg, legs, arm, head. When we begin to break it down, understanding that Allah is within me, and as I ascend within myself, because I don't need no one to die for me. I don't need no one to save me from anything. If I'm going to save, if any savior comes forth, it comes from within me. And as Allah begins to show me that, and begin to show me that I'm connected with that source, Yahweh, as they call him, more so on the scientific level, the Yod Hey Wah Hey, the Tetragrammaticon, has more to do with the, and I know I'm gonna get shot with this one, but it has to do with the four elements. You got fire, water, earth, and air. And when you begin to look at the Kabbalistic side of the Hebrew scriptures, which all of it is Kabbalistic. Every religion out there is Kabbalistic in nature, because it deals with the science of all things, the elements, the periodic tables. And when we begin to see these things right here for what they are, then the fear leaves, because it's all about science. Just like you open up your science book or your anatomy book and learn about your body. You know, there are things that you didn't know about your body, how it functioned, until you actually got into that anatomy book and start really, wow, that works like that? That works like this? Everything works in conjunction with one another. And it's the same way with Moorish science. Everything works in conjunction with one another. As a matter of fact, the Holy Quran, circa 7. I want to read just a quick little portion, not very long. It states in chapter 3, which is one of my favorite chapters, by the way. Elihu's lessons, the unity of life. Again, Elihu met his pupils in the sacred grove and said, no man live unto himself, for every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing. Now, that right there says it all. Every living thing is bound by cords to every other living thing. So that means that if I'm connected to the Creator, rather I call him Yod-Heh-Wah-Heh or Allah, then I shouldn't have no fear because I'm ascending in knowledge. Why would he curse me if I'm trying to extend my knowledge or increase my knowledge in who I am and trying to go higher in my understanding of self? Why would a loving God curse me or get mad at me or turn his back on me? And that's what helped me get over the whole fear of, well, I can't say Allah, because that's another deity or whatever. No, we don't have to be afraid. So it's a combination of both, my brother, the spirit and also learning the science behind, the whole Moorish paradigm.
Islam. Well, we hit about an hour right now, so I don't know if you have any closing portions that you want to touch on. But we'll definitely have to do a part 2 because this is going a little bit deeper than I thought it would have even went. And also too, don't forget your to put out your contact info. So any other Moors out in that jurisdiction could get to you.
Indeed. I just want to show a couple photos, just to our Hebrew Israelite brothers and sisters. We talk about science and we talk about DNA and blood and how we all are interconnected. We're the same family. We're just brothers, cousins, aunts, uncles. We all just have different family names that, live in different regions and have different expressions of our, beliefs or what have you, ethnic backgrounds, but the same bloodline. So I want to share this photo right here, if everybody can see it. If you see right here, you have a brother from Terra de Fuego, which is down there in between Argentina and Chile. Right here in the middle, you have the brothers here in good old North America. And then the last person over here, the sister from Brazil. Now, if anybody looks at this, they can see the phenotypical resemblance. All of them are Moors. All of them have the same phenotypical makeup. No difference. We're not separate people. We're the same people. Whether you call yourself Brazilian, whether you call yourself Argentinian, whether you call yourself, North American, Negro, Black, colored, African American, same people. We're all Moors. This next photo right here. One of them from the east. But they look just like each other. Very similar. And Cujo, this one that you posted on the video from Scholastic magazine, I like this one because this settles the argument. This settled the argument right here. This you can find on Scholastic News magazine. It's an article that came out and talk about growing up in the 1620s. Growing up in the 1620s, as I alluded to earlier, that a lot of our Hebrew Israelites said that they came over in slave ships. In 1619 was the first slave ship that came over. Then all these other millions of slaves came over, and majority were Hebrew Israelites. But right here, once again, 1620s. This sister there, little sister on the right, was a native. The other one is a foreigner that came over here to our land. We were already here. Look at that precious face right there. Isn't she beautiful? Doesn't she look like one of your little nephews or nieces out there, little sister? But yet, we don't want to claim our nationality because our beliefism has separated us and make us go against one another. Nationality is real. Nationality is not fake. Everywhere I go, I wear this fez right here. There's a different look. There's a different vibration that I receive from people. I'll give you a quick testimony. I know we're going to have to close off here. I was in the grocery store with my family, and my little boy had his fez on as well. And as we were shopping throughout the store, I noticed this older couple. They kept looking at us. You know, I knew they wanted to say something, but they didn't come out right away and say it. So we ended up checking out. And so as it checked out, my wife went on to the vehicle as I was, my little boy and I was checking out. So we ended up finishing what we had to do and went out to load up the vehicle with our groceries. And then all of a sudden, the same gentleman I saw looking at us in the store came over to me and said, "Hey, excuse me, I have a question for you, sir." I said, "Yeah, go ahead." He said, what is that? What is that hat on your head?" I said, "Well, it's not a hat." I said, "It's our national headdress." I said, "I'm a Moorish American." And I said, "I'm Aboriginal, indigenous to the land here." I said, "It's also called a fez." I said, "But in older times, it was the tarbouche." And he looked at me and said, "Oh, okay. So, well, thank you very much." So as I finished unloading the groceries and proceeded to take the cart back into the little cart, tray there, and I turned around. He was like, well, they were two cars over from me, and the wife just looked at me and started smiling and waving like this, and he would give me 2 thumbs up, And so I'm like, my wife saw it and said, "Wow, they really were excited, but because I think it was a test. I think he probably was a Shriner or somebody like that and all, but the fact that, and I can give you numerous of stories that it's happened like that before, all because of wearing my fez, knowing that I'm not Negro, black, and colored. People respect folk who have a nationality. And so if you think that, and I wear my kufi as well. I wear a kufi at times. I don't get no looks with no kufi on. People don't look at me strange. They probably look thinking, well, he probably one of those NOI guys, Nation of Islam or whatever case may be. I ain't gonna deal with them. But when I put this fez on, it's a whole new world. It's a different respect. So I just want to encourage the Hebrew Israelites out there. And, you know, I know there's a lot of misinformation because a lot of the leaders are holding back. And I just want to encourage the ones that are truly seeking this truth. And you're at that point where I was 3 years ago, 4 years ago, where, you know, I don't know, should I do this? Should I not do it or whatever like that? It's time to make that step. It's time to cross on over. And that's what Hebrew really means, because it's not a noun. It's actually a verb transitive. You can research that yourself and do the etymology on it, but it's a verb transitive. It just means to cross over. We're the first one that crossed over the river and thus became Ibri. And we all are Yehudis right here in the good old northwest of Mexico. So my contact information, you can reach me at Zephaniah Abraham L, and I'm going to spell that for you. Zephaniah is T as in Thomas, Z as in zebra, E as in Edward, P as in Paul, H as in Henry, A as in Apple, N as in Nancy, Y-A-H, Abraham, A-B-R-A-H-A-M, L-E-L at gmail.com. So give me a shout out. I got plenty of information. I got plenty of stuff that you guys can just, you know, feast on.
Islam, more. Appreciate your time. I know it was one of them days, but, you know, I definitely appreciate you getting the word out, assisting of fallen humanity. And, you know, definitely you're probably going to get some emails. I'm pretty sure you're going to get some emails because people are waking up right now. Everybody's realizing that, you know, something's up. It's that time. Ancestors tapping them on their shoulder, you know.
That's right.
Whatever deities that they believe in are giving them signs, whether it's on TV, news, newspaper, just walking on the street, whatever. Everybody's getting tapped right now. So we're gonna definitely get this up as soon as possible, and with the Most High's will, it's gonna have an impact on those who need to be impacted.
Indeed. And once again, I want to thank you, Brother Cujo, for allowing me to share tonight, and also for what you're doing. I mean, you are on it every week. You're faithful Moors, and that's what Noble Drew Ali said. He said, you know, you're faithful Moors. That's what he's looking for. And so I just want to thank you and the Canaanland Moors for all that you guys do. I watch the videos all the time, and like I said, a shout out to MHHS. Eyes Wide Open, Sister Anna Edel, and Sister Rosemary, Miss Raheem, all of those brothers and sisters that are there faithfully every week. So you guys keep doing it, man. Keep doing it. Keep getting the knowledge out there.
Islam, more.
Islam.